these people are absolutely innocent. They do not know how the seas are. We as seafarers, we do not ignore or mess with the ocean. Only savior out at sea first is a life jacket. And life jacket has to be mandatory for every person who's on a ferry. Some authority should be having control that the right man is operating this boat. We do not know his qualifications. We do not know his certification. For all you know, he must be some fisherman who has sat there, who probably is just replacing some person who's originally supposed to be there. Hold the man on the ship first fully responsible, because the captain of the ship must ensure that his people on his ship are following the rules and he is ready for an emergency.
On 18th of December, a passenger ferry boat collided with a Navy speedboat off the Mumbai coast in the Arabian Sea, claiming 15 lives. This is no ordinary incident, viewer. It may have hit the headlines and then fallen off the headlines, but it has raised very serious questions about passenger safety in these ferry boats. Most of them, by the way, were tourists who were on a joyride, whose lives were snapped out of them untimely. There were so many children there, around 20 children were present among the over 100 passengers, 110 passengers in fact, who were traveling in that ferry boat. Now, questions that are raised regarding the safety of the passengers also hover around the issue of why life jackets were not present there, why were there speedboat trials being conducted by the Navy in the first place in a route like this, which is meant for passengers and for ferries that ply in these passenger routes, and a number of other complaints about how these ferry boats operate and how there is lack of coordination with the Navy in these crucial areas which are busy traffic routes. I am now joined by Captain Amit Bhandari, who is a maritime expert who has spent like a lifetime in the seas, 32 years in the Merchant Navy, and he knows the ins and outs of how these boats operate, what are the challenges there, and how such a collision can even happen. Who is responsible to ensure that these mishaps do not occur? Very warm welcome to you, Amit. Thank you so much for joining us here on Free Press Journal. So let's then begin first with the entire sequence of events, and you have seen the footage. We will be playing it out with this video about how the speedboat rams into this passenger ferry boat, apparently losing control at the very crucial moment, and then this capsize happens. First of all, what is your understanding of why this happened? Who lost control and how can this happen?
So, you know, in the marine industry and various industries, we always follow the safety triangle. Safety triangle is when a serious mishap has happened, there are at least 3,000 hazardous occurrences which have been there, which have been ignored, which have then caused 300 near misses and leading to 30 injuries or serious issues and leading to one tragic event. So, an event like this has not happened by chance. These are things which have been missed over the months, over the years, and finally we are seeing what we saw today or we saw on the other day. Now, what we understand is there is a Navy boat which was doing trials and which has gone and hit. That is what the story that we hear, and we would not know the real facts, but what I believe could have happened is that probably somebody got very thrilled with the excitement of trying these very powerful machines and lost control and has gone and rammed into this ferry boat, and probably he's doing these trials or the so-called thrill exercises in areas where he was not supposed to be there in the first place.
That's critical.
You know, it is not so easy to sink a ship. We have sailed so many years in our life, and I believe ship is a very safe place to be. Because tomorrow if I try to sink a particular ferry or a ship, it's very difficult. But for a ferry to get hit by a boat and then start sinking, lot of questions which can come up in today's podcast, yes, which I'll be happy to answer. Yeah?
You know, I want to begin in fact by also asking you that ideally, in an ideal situation, one would imagine that you do take into account certain mishaps. Like when you are on board an aircraft, they tell you that in the eventuality of this, you have to wear an oxygen mask and this is how you can save yourself. What are the safety measures that passengers are told in a ferry boat? Why couldn't they save themselves? 15 lives lost, it's not a small number. Why did so many people die?
Yeah. So I go to Alibag pretty often for various work. And, with our friends in the speedboats, I used to be the one to say, hey guys, where is the life jacket? So, it is a laughing matter where everybody feels, hey, come on, you don't have to know where's the life jacket. I said, guys, we should always be aware where the life jacket is. Actually, we should be wearing it. So, ferry boat, these people are absolutely innocent. They do not know how the seas are. We as seafarers, we do not ignore or mess with the ocean after having sailed 32 years or having been connected to it, because we've seen enough. A mishap out at sea will be disastrous, and we have one example here.
Yeah.
This is a port like Mumbai. We are not even outside the waters of Mumbai, where the response was so poor, which we can come to. But in a sinking like this, 15 people lost their lives.
Yeah.
They could have easily been saved, and why within the port of Mumbai, a disaster like this, we could not save these people?
Yeah. So A, the safety measures, but B, the rescue. Do you think that we are lacking with the skills, that we do not have efficient enough responders, first responders, rescue teams who can spring into action in this kind of a situation not too far from the Mumbai coast?
Not too far at all. In fact, on paper, we will be having a very good rescue response procedure and a system. But if you see the news of the people who actually went through it, they found the first rescue attempt coming after about 25 minutes.
Yeah, that is what I reckon.
And 25 minutes is a huge amount of time for a response in Bombay port.
Yeah.
And that too, I believe it's a pilot boat which has come and responded to it. While we should have had a rescue mission and a rescue full team reaching there.
Yeah.
Instead, we had a pilot boat and captain of the boat trying to save everybody.
Yeah, there was CISF, there is Marine Police and Navy. All of these three agencies could not save lives. I mean, of course, you may say that over around 100 passengers were saved as well. But there were little children who actually drowned. Do you believe that is purely because you lost that crucial amount of time of those 20 minutes, which of course the post-mortem shows that many of them had asphyxiation and death by drowning.
Yeah.
So obviously those must have been very critical moments for those people who fell into the waters.
Out at sea, we never come into a close quarters situation. We always are trained like that. Because if you come into a close quarters situation, it's too late.
Yeah.
You cannot do much once the incident has happened, because the ship or the ferry was the best place for them to survive. But when that goes down, you really have less chances. And the only savior out at sea first is a life jacket. And life jacket has to be mandatory for every person who's on a ferry, especially because these are people who have no idea what the ocean can do to them.
Yeah. We identified the two primary things. You said that these are speedboats. Okay, they might be a term used officially. For all we know, there might have been somebody doing stunts out there. Let's be open about it. That's what you said. There could be these thrill, exercises which do happen. We cannot completely rule it out. There you went wrong. Then you went wrong with not having something as critical as life jacket. So everything that could possibly go wrong was going wrong. It was like a disaster waiting to happen then, Amit.
See, now everybody's starting to wear a life jacket, because I was there in the ferry boat just 2 days ago. And life jacket now is more like taking a crocin for a serious infection deep inside and only trying to hide the symptoms of the problem. Life jacket is definitely a very primary first step that a ferry boat should be carrying out.
Yeah.
But we got a series of issues here why this accident has actually happened. There is the side of the ferry boat, there is the side of the Navy, There is the side of the VTS, which is the Bombay port, and there is a side of the classification society who actually certifies these boats to sail and to call them seaworthy even to cross this channel.
Okay.
They are actually 50-year-old ferries who are still operating. Their conditions and their bottom plating, they don't even have plating, they are all made of wood. Today you hardly find any of these operating in any part of the world.
So the licensing authorities, as it were, like
Yes.
we would say for the case of cars,
Yes.
also has failed to do due diligence and put checks and balances. The quality of boats you're saying are also risky, if that is what you're trying to indicate.
There is something called MMB, which is the Maharashtra Maritime Board. There is something called SOLAS, which is the big ships are certified by SOLAS regulations, while Mumbai, the Maharashtra Maritime Board certifies these ferry boats. Now you see the big difference for anybody who has gone to the M2M ferries, which is transiting to Alibag, and you see any of these ferries. You will see a marked change in the approach, the mindset, the attitude of the officers on board. You will see safety standards. As soon as cars enter, they ask you to move this side. You come on board, they will give you a safety video on board which goes on, and they will ensure that you do not move to the wrong areas. So this is the way actually the big ships operate. And it is also the way ferries and passenger boats are supposed to operate. But sadly in our country, I do feel life is treated a little too lightly. And that is one of the biggest reasons.
And we don't want that to happen. The whole idea, viewers, of doing this is to really call this attitude of negligence, because this will not do. We cannot lose precious lives like this. And I was just talking to Amit before we started this interview that for you and me, we read it as a newspaper headline of, say, a statistic of 15 people. Do we even understand that those homes whose lives are shattered? And as I was reading the anecdotes, I was literally getting angry about how lightly we have taken this and how people have literally stopped talking about it. There was this incident of a young boy, Zohan, who had come to Mumbai on a vacation with his family. From Goa, they come to Bombay. They were on a joyride. So there was his maternal aunt, his father, his 10-month-old brother who survived. Zohan and his mother, Safina, who was only 35 years old, died in this accident. This is just one example. So, like you said, is life too cheap in this country? And who should we hold responsible? Whose door should we be knocking to get this corrected immediately?
It is not a one-man issue. It's a system issue. And I would say there are 4 or 5 areas which going forward which need to be corrected. But I would like to talk about what are those 4 or 5 areas that need to be addressed.
Sure.
Number one is, let's talk about the ferry boat itself. When you enter these ferry boats, what kind of crew do you find? Do you even know if the captain is certified to operate this boat? Because his certificate has only been checked at the time of inspection of the surveys of the ship. After that, the whole year, nobody knows who is the captain of that ship. Because
it's not like how pilots have to go through training time and again and clear exams. There is no such...
Definitely he has to be somebody who's cleared his exams. But when I am also getting into the ferry boat, I don't know who's the captain on top. Because some authority should be having control that the right man is operating this boat. We do not know his qualifications. We do not know his certification. For all you know, he must be some fisherman who has sat there, who probably is just replacing some person who was originally supposed to be there. And I tell you this because I know things like this happen.
And there is no such authority who is sitting there to ensure that that doesn't happen. The system is taken lightly.
Yes.
It's not robust enough to ensure that people who are holding the reins are responsible enough, trained enough. Nobody out there to, you're saying, to check that, to ensure that.
The checks are very weak and they're very poor. And I would say somewhere our systems are so corrupted that, things are let go. For example, you enter a ferry like this, who do you meet first? You meet a ticket collector. The ticket collector is supposed to be a certified officer of the ferry who's supposed to ensure that crowd management is well followed. People are well aware of not to be standing near the railing. It's a situation where if you fall off this ferry in a normal run, you'll never be found. People think I'm a good swimmer. Today I am a captain of a ship, and I wear a life jacket because I know if I fall into this water, I will not be found. No matter how good a swimmer you are.
You cannot take a chance with the waters like that.
You cannot, and the waters will not forgive you for this if you take it too lightly.
We were talking about the number of things that went wrong, and I must remind you, if you haven't read about it, that there was apparently a issue of oil spillage as well. So I read that when they were conducting the rescue, there was the situation of the hand slipping away because they could not hold the people who were screaming, of course, to get themselves saved. So why would that happen? Like, what is this oil spillage issue in this particular passenger ferry boat?
Now again, it's a situational thing, I would say, because the construction of the boats are so poor, the tanks which are holding the fuel are so poor and not probably been surveyed over the years, that one boat coming and hitting them, the tanks have just broken loose and all the oil is out. And it's incidentally a very sorry situation that the entire oil and the boat has hit probably at a point where the tank was there, and all the tank and oil has spilled out. That will definitely be a part of any maritime situation. And to deal with it, you're supposed to have an oil response team also which responds to this. Because this is a small oil spill. There could have been a huge oil spill of a big ship colliding, and entire oil coming into the gateway of India, 2 lakh, 3 lakh tons of oil, if it spills into the water, your entire beaches here, gateway of India, all of it will be full of oil. So we are supposed to have oil response teams. And I don't think any of them showed up there.
Again, the blame game has started as well, right? Like the local ferry owners have very conveniently put the entire onus on the Navy, saying that they were the ones who were in our route. Now, they are not willing to take the responsibility that we didn't have life jackets or our oil tankers were not insulated enough, whatever else it is. But from my conversation with you, now I realize that you cannot pin the entire responsibility on Navy, which frankly even I thought was the only reason. But now, as you point all this out, the local and the ferry owners are demanding why Navy was conducting these trials. Do you think that's also a valid question to ask?
Very
that there
valid.
should be dedicated areas for these sort of trials, if at all it was a trial. Let's assume for a moment it was indeed a trial.
No, absolutely. In fact, I was going to talk about something like that. See, any foreign port or any place else, I would say, where the standards are high, you're supposed to have a proper traffic route that the ferry is going to follow. So on the navigational charts, even the Bombay Harbour chart, if you see, there will be a proper route marked. The ferry is not supposed to move out of that route. They will go up and down only in that route. Now when that route is marked, a naval personnel, they are the Indian Navy, they definitely know that is the route of the ferry boats, and irrespective of the time, you're not supposed to be in it. But here is somebody who comes in called VTS, which is the Vessel Traffic System of the Bombay Port. Bombay Port VTS will now not allow a permission to carry out such a trial in these waters, because there are supposed to be dedicated waters where you do this, and when that happens, this is supposed to be transmitted to all the boats and the other ships, not these ferries probably, because they have a fixed route. You're not supposed to come in their way because they have a fixed route. But any other ship transiting should be aware there is so much movement happening.
So how did VTS allow this trial to happen then?
That is something we need to find out, whether VTS was even aware of such a trial happening. Because none of these can actually be executed without permission from the vessel traffic system.
Yeah. Just a couple of last questions about, how these disasters happen if speed is an issue. If the ferry boat was in any lesser speed, or if the speed boat of the Navy speed boat was in any lesser speed, would this not have happened? Is speed also an important factor here? Why this happened the way it did, the magnitude of it?
Speed is an important factor for two reasons. Number one, like somebody on a bike thinks they can just press the pedal or raise the accelerator on a 1000 cc and enjoy it, and then they suddenly come into a situation where they regret having touched that speed. One is that reason. Yes, speed is your response time to a problem is always going to be much lesser if your speed is so high. That is one definite reason why this happened. Secondly,
but for this, sorry to interrupt, for this, it's entirely the Navy's side that has to take
yes,
responsibility, because a ferry boat
100%.
couldn't have been speeding
100%.
at all in that sort of a situation. Yeah.
These are powerful machines. You don't
Yeah.
mess with them like that.
Yeah.
Secondly, there is a formula of momentum. Momentum is mass into velocity. So if the mass is small and the velocity is very high, momentum is going to be so huge that a hit at that momentum will have the power to break into things. For example, you talk about asteroids falling, then a small piece of stone coming at that speed can create a huge crater. So definitely speed is one of the major criteria why this disaster has happened. Otherwise, nobody intends something like this. I'm sure the boat driver who was there didn't intend it, but he's avoided
So
the
apparently
rules.
these collisions have happened before, and that's what the reason I asked you this question is basically to highlight the fact that these speed boats have collided with ferry boats before, but I think depending on the speed and the intensity, accidents have not happened of this level, that cause such fatalities. But if things have happened before, why were lessons not learned? Why were systems not put in place? Why were they waiting for such a disaster to happen? That remains the big question. But in conclusion, Captain Amit Bhandari, let me ask you, in your experience in the seas, do you have memory of any of an incident like this that you were part of, or something like this was averted? And would you like to share any of your anecdotes with us?
I have more than 10-15 incidences. I don't think we can go into the details of those, but I like to highlight a very small mindset issue here. Like, I was in the boat just 2 days ago and everybody is wearing a life jacket. So I asked for my life jacket and the person said that, do you really want one? Because looking at me, he thought probably you look smart enough to not ask for a life jacket.
Okay.
So I said, yes, I need a life jacket. So instead of he getting me one, my passenger sitting next to me, I sent you a picture of that. Passenger sitting next to me, he says, ye lo bhai, mera life jacket le lo.
Okay.
आप
जरा दूर से लग रहे हैं. मतलब almost judging you, sir.
Yeah, so the man not realizing that I am a captain myself and I am asking for a life jacket. So mindset has to change.
Absolutely.
Because a small incident which is not related to maritime, but me and a friend, we were in Maldives and we were on the water scooter. So both of us were wearing the life jacket, and the water scooter has a response team also who's with you. You go out in the waters and you speed up. Now, I wore the life jacket the way I'm supposed to wear it, but a friend of mine who was with me, he wore it just casually. And during our scooter ride, something happened, and I also don't know what happened, and both of us were in the water.
Okay.
And the scooter was like moved away from us. And I was wearing my glares and my glares were in the water. I tried to look for my glares and suddenly I heard, Amit, 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 Amit. And I saw my friend is just going down.
Oh.
Because his life jacket was loose. So when life jacket, which is the floating object, will just go up and you will start sinking down. So you cannot take a chance out at sea and with the water. Your life jacket has to be worn, it has to be tight, it has to be absolutely as per procedure. Otherwise, that day I would have lost my friend. And it's a matter of seconds.
This is such important information, Captain Amit Bhandari, that you're sharing with us, because it made me realize how far we are from following the safety standards. You are telling us how to fasten a life jacket. My grouse today with the system is that we don't even have enough of them in that boat. Otherwise, we would not have lost so many lives. But if you are to say something to the VTS, to the ferry owners, to the Navy, what would be your message?
I think system needs a lot of correction, and maybe the ferry boats need to be put under the SOLAS regulations, amended SOLAS regulation, because cost definitely comes in. And if things are not commercially viable, because I also work on the commercial side of things, then you will find these ferries just stopping. Nobody will operate them. but we need to come to a good balance to understand what is the bare minimum which need to be done, a training which needs to be carried out, maybe a 2-minute video which needs to be played and people life jackets checked. And my humble request is hold the man on the ship first fully responsible.
Okay.
Because the captain of the ship must ensure that his people on his ship are following the rules and he is ready for an emergency. That's why he is there. He is not there to take people up and down. He is there as a captain because he needs to make sure his crew and his people are safe and tomorrow there is no incident like this. So actually, the international standards which exist, there we had a situation where a cadet fell off the ship. Now out of 15 people on board a ship, we had a cadet who's disappeared from the ship. So assumed to have fallen overboard or something has happened. That matter was taken up so seriously by the company. I don't want to name the company here, but very internationally things are very, very serious out at sea and on the big ships. And it is shocking to see that a ferry which is carrying 100 people, we take it so lightly.
So this couldn't have happened. What you're saying essentially is that anywhere else in the world, for something of this level to happen is very unlikely given today's standards. Is that what you're reiterating here?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm happy you've invited me because I saw some of the news feeds online. It's more like just trying to find out who's to be blamed and then eat a croissant, put a life jacket, and let's all move our way. But things are not going to change with that.
I really appreciate, because what you are saying is that we have to elevate our standards. We cannot operate with this benchmark. Our benchmark has to go up.
Yes.
Did I get that point correctly?
Absolutely. If you see a situation like how India used to be a very dirty country, but when the malls came up, people who are actually throwing garbage in those areas, but they enter a mall, they've realized you're not supposed to throw garbage. But otherwise, it took some time to train them there also. Similarly, I think we have to elevate. When somebody enters a ferry, he needs to understand you're now moving into a danger zone. This is not your regular garden that you walk around in. So you have to be very careful. You cannot be walking around the ferry areas. If you fall overboard, you'll never be found. It's very simple. Most likely you will go into the propeller of the ferry.
Yeah, for this podcast, Captain Bhandari, I think is important for all those people who have taken or is planning to take a ride in a ferry. I would really urge to share this video also so that people are aware that, it's not about just taking a joyride in a ferry. You do have to maintain certain safety standards, and the onus is also on the passengers. We spoke about the authorities, we spoke about the captain, but in conclusion, I think we must highlight that those who are traveling has a responsibility towards their own safety. Cannot be ignored.
Towards their own safety and the safety of their own family members who are traveling with them. If you have a small child and the child is not without a life jacket, it's 100% you're going to lose that child if an incident happens. So people, my only humble request to all the people who are now next time taking a ferry, please question the standards on board. Don't let your family members be at risk when you are traveling on these, by ensuring that the ferry is not overloaded. It is written over there what is the number of passengers the ferry is supposed to carry. But today, most of our people will not even question that. There should be a system where the license of the captain is posted at the public area of the ferry for anybody to recognize that is he really the captain on board. See, these are going to be deterrents where the people who are breaking the law will now be a little bit in control. Because today with social media, if I go and click a picture of that license and I say the guy on the captain is not the one, we can bring in a lot of controls.
Your awareness is important. That's the point we are making here. Your awareness about the safety standards and what you should be doing. Very simple things which you pointed out. And it takes nothing absolutely to make sure that your child is wearing a life jacket, to make sure that you see the license, to make sure that you know what is the capacity of the boat that you're traveling in, and we see that in elevators, that this is the number of persons allowed. You do see a certificate also,
Yes.
safety certificate also. Same things have to be there in a passenger boat.
I think, if you want to see somebody follow the rules, let the captain's wife be on the same ship.
That's a good one.
You'll find he'll ensure that that boat is very safe.
Or a child, or his child for that
Or
matter.
his child, or his very close family member,
Right.
And that actually brings me to a story, if you
please.
allow me. That load line rules in the maritime industry came about in 1960. Load line means how much a ship can carry. What happened is, before 1960, the captain used to be the owner of the ship. So if the owner of this boat, for example the ferry, is the captain himself, his behavior will be different.
Completely different.
Right now he's an employee, and he's getting pressure of his owner that you better take more than 85 people or 80 people on this boat. This is season time. Go 100, go 110. I don't care. This is profit making time, because the owner is different and the captain is different. But if the captain becomes the owner, things will be different.
More responsible. Very interesting. Again, a very interesting point, because surely there is profiteering involved in this. Season time, the number of passengers go up substantially, and normally in this route also, in this particular case also, I think about 70 to 80 passengers. Season time, it goes above 100, 150. So yes, a point made about how the boat owners are not the same people who are the captain of the ship. That makes a difference as well.
It does.
Thank
Yeah.
you.